Eagles. Eagles.
And welcome in, everybody, to a Wednesday edition of Birds 365 here on JAKIB Sports. I'm your host, Zander Krause. That's my co-host, Johnny Mac, John McMullen, here with you live for a full show today. Plenty of news in Eagle Land that we'll get to, plenty of prep as we have more of the offseason coming up. Johnny Mac, how you doing on this Wednesday morning, my friend?
Doing well, yeah. Gearing up for the combine, free agency. It's all coming together. It's all inching closer. The hot stove season for football for all those baseball people.
What's Johnny Mac tracking right now? You know, at this time of the year, I think your off-season view is a good place to start. What's Johnny Mac tracking at this time of the year for this football team? You got your eye on the combine. What is it, J Mac?
Mainly free agency. Like I said, you're not going to garner much information from the combine other than as the health stuff starts to leak out. Not as much focused on that as the whispers coming from the meetings leading into free agency. It's as I said, it's like a big convention of agents and executives, and they get together and they lay the foundation for what's going to happen in free agency. So that to me is the far bigger part of the combine. But again, that's behind the scenes. That's not it's not in front of the camera. So get to watch a bunch of guys run around in Under Armour gear in front of the camera. So that's played up. Obviously, the NFL's done a good job, pumping that into something that people want to watch. And, great, have fun with it. But the more important stuff is laying that groundwork for what you're going to do in free agency.
Any update, John, on what they're going to do? I did read something on Bleeding Green Nation from our boy Brandon Lee Goutton yesterday. Jaylen Phillips, it had something on there about Jaylen Phillips. I don't know what you feel about that one way or the other, but it basically read like they thought Jaylen Phillips wouldn't be back in Philly. Now, I don't know, how much merit there is to that. What is your thought on that?
Well, they haven't gotten there yet. They haven't gotten to Indy yet. So I don't think, it's time to make grandiose statements. And I didn't see what you're specifically talking about, but in the case of Jaelan Phillips, I think he's the number one option for the Eagles heading into free agent. Bad term. The number one goal is getting him back. What that looks like depends on the market. If he's smart, he's going to test it with the salary cap going up pretty significantly. We've seen some of these crazy market predictions, which I think are based on old numbers, not new numbers. If he's coming back at $17 million a year, I think the Eagles will jump at that. I don't think that's realistic. The question is, how high do you go? If it gets into the 20-25 million range, then you have a much tougher decision. But then you have to go out and replace it. There's two parts to it. Then if you don't re-sign him, then you got to go out to replace him. And I know everybody's like, well, go get Max Crosby. Well, then you've already given up a third-round pick for Jaylen Phillips, and you got to pay him $20 million. And then you're going to give up a 2 and a 3 for Max Crosby. And I'm just making this up, but as everybody else does. So you're giving up a 3, a 2, and a 3, and then you're going to pay more money. That doesn't sound very Eagles-like to me. Now, again, if you're not able to get Phillips, then desperation. Maybe that's too strong of a word, but urgency is probably the better word. Increases to get a difference maker, and maybe you have to give up that extra draft capital that you wouldn't have had to give up to go get a player the caliber of Max Crosby. But I don't know what all I get a lot of consternation. I don't know if you get it, but I've been getting it. It's like And I guess it's because he hasn't had huge sack numbers. But I mean, did anybody watch when he arrived, the difference in the Eagles defense? I thought it was pretty significant. Um, I thought it was a pretty damn good trade, but it doesn't become a damn good trade unless you keep him. If you don't keep him, then you gave up a 3rd round pick for half a season. And you lost in the first round of the playoffs.
Exactly right.
Trade.
Yeah, I think they're going to pay him. We'll see what ends up happening with Jaelan Phillips. I like the player, John, but most people out there, John, care more about sacks than you do. I think that's what it comes down.
Well, I would say most people in the general public care.
Yeah,
Vic Fangio's on my team. I'll tell you that. I'd rather be on Vic's team than
the general public's
team. Again, I think people misinterpret because I used to have this argument with Jody all the time. It's like, I'm not saying they're bad. It's just they're just not as important as most people think they are, And in the case of Vic specifically, I mean, it's about disciplined team pass rush. That's speeding up the quarterback. And he doesn't care who gets home.
Right.
And has explained it multiple times. Sometimes Morrow gets a sack, but Jalen Carter created it. But Morrow gets the credit for it. And sometimes vice versa. And sometimes it's Jaylen Phillips and Jalix Hunt gets credit. And sometimes it's vice versa.
Right.
Who cares?
I definitely agree with you on that, John. I think the one area where I might slightly disagree with you would be I do think sacks can have a big impact on the game. And I don't think that your take is that they can't have a big impact. It's that they don't tell the full story and there's a lot of lost context in them. But, I've seen too many times where you have a 2nd or a 3rd and long, that completely messes up your offensive drive because of a sack. Now, that's the only spot I would say if you're a finisher, that's a big value to a defense. But where I agree with you is that it doesn't tell the full story of how much an edge rusher has an impact on a defense overall. If that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, I think they're never a bad thing because it's going to be at the bare minimum, a loss of yardage but there is no difference when you see at the end of the season, there is no difference between a strip sack and a touchdown. That's one sack. In a sack for no gain, literally no gain, not even a loss.
Right.
Stop them at the line of scrimmage. That's a sack. When you look at the end of the season and look at that, they don't differentiate that. This one,
I wonder what the percentages are. Like how many of the sacks do happen like that? Where they're within a yard from the line of scrimmage.
Well, you see it every week. I mean, it's a significant number, and there's a lot of ways you can affect the game. I talk about it all the time. I always bring up the Chris Long play. That was a pressure. That wasn't a sack in the NFC Championship game. And that, if it were a sack, it would have been great. It would have been drive over, Vikings punt the football, and who knows what happens. But at that point of the game, it was, I think people forget because it turned into a blowout. It was 7-0 Minnesota. They went right down the field, scored pretty easily. They were moving the football again. They got one first down, and you're like, they're nearing midfield, and you're like, oh shit, what's going on here? And then here comes Chris Long, pressure, not a sack. Ball comes out of Case Keenum's hand. Patrick Robinson intercepts it. Rest is history. Rumbles back for the touchdown. You could hear the noise in South Jersey. Jonathan Gannon talked about it. He was a Vikings assistant at the time. Stole their hearts on one play. That's not even a sack, but that's pressure.
That's a good example of a really good pressure. Do you also agree that, there's moments when a pressure is just not enough,
obviously same thing. I mean, there's tons of moments where quarterbacks just avoid it and make big plays.
In the face of it, right, and make a big play. Yep.
But it works both ways. And I say sacks are never a bad thing because by definition, you're going to lose yardage as the offense is going to lose yardage, or at the bare minimum, only reach back to the line of scrimmage. But there's a ton of less than meaningful sacks, and you gotta pick that apart from the ones that are meaningful. And again, I use Chris Long again because he's a big time pass rusher, and he's talked about this multiple times. He would mention some of his. That's Fletcher Cox,
Right.
ran the guy right into me.
John, it seems like, and maybe I'm wrong here, but do you think the NFL at large, not like Vic, I'm talking like the big picture, is more, I don't want to use like your side, but do they think more like you? Because I do say, man, a lot of these GMs will pay these sack guys, man. The sack guys get big money. Myles Garrett, he's a little bit different beast. But, Jaylen Phillips is being rumored between 16 and 20 million. Now, I think it's going to be more than that, but you get my point. He's not getting paid as much because of probably those sack numbers, as opposed to if he had double digits last year. The NFL.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. But I often say the business of football doesn't always align with the game of football. And you could talk about some of the most impact, like who was the most impactful player of the Eagles Super Bowl team? It was Saquon Barkley. At a position they devalue and they pay less than everywhere else. But when you're a good team and you have a good running back, look at Jahmyr Gibbs in Detroit.
Right.
When you're a good team and who's more important to the offense than the running back? Who's more important to the defense than a big time safety? They don't pay those guys like they do edge rushers. They have a much more. You've seen Cooper DeJean playing inside. It's like the thought they play outside corners more than inside corners because most inside corners stink. But when you have a good one, look at the impact he has on the game because he's closer to the action. Look, as good as Quinyon Mitchell is, if you don't throw at him, there's nothing he can do.
You won't see him all game.
Often the business of football does not align with the game of football. And you're 100% right to point that out. And yeah, they do. That's why it means so much. That's why you have sack chasers. That's why I have the Jason Babbins of the world.
Yeah, right.
Who freelance
or Hassan Reddick here in Philly, as at least that's how it was reported.
And that's why people like Vic love unselfish people who aren't worried about that. And it's not easy because you're exactly right. If Jaelan Phillips gets double-digit sacks for 4 years in a row, I might be the only one, but I'll say it. You could say, what is it, February 18th, 8:21 in the morning. Jaelan Phillips is a better football player than Max Crosby. I'm probably the only one that say it. Maybe Vic would say it. Certainly the only one in the media. He's a better all-around player. Not getting paid as much, but I'd rather have him. I know Vic would rather have him.
And what does he do that just to elaborate on this, because we're on it this morning? What does he do that makes you say that? In turn, like,
he does everything.
Because I know, but I want to be specific because people are going to hear that, and I don't care whether they agree with you or not. That's not my point. They're going to say, "What the fuck is John McMullen talking about? Jaelan Phillips is a good player, but Max Crosby is one of the elite pass rushers in the league." Why do you say that you'd rather have Jaelan Phillips? What does he provide to you that Max doesn't, that would make you say that?
Well, he is a big, strong dude who can set, and that's what I was most impressed with. His ability to set the edge, his ability to play and run support. And I kind of got it after he got here. This is why Vic likes him. So when you have a guy who can set the edge like he did, and be a disruptive pass rusher. And, oh, by the way, he can move inside and play inside. If you want to go NASCAR and you want to have 4 pass rushers on the field, he can rush from inside. I mean, he is exactly what Vic wants. And it's no coincidence that the best 2 stretches of football he's played are under Vic Fangio in Miami before he got hurt and when he got here. I don't think that's a coincidence because he's unselfish. He's not chasing sacks. He's just doing his job, and he's doing it very well. And I think he was, for a while there, and it didn't end well. But for a while there, the Eagles looked like the best defense in the NFL down the stretch. And I think his presence had a big deal with it. And I asked Mick that question in a press conference, and I boiled it down to his impact. How much better has he made Jalix Hunt? How much better has he made Nolan Smith being on the other side? And he expanded it. He was like, well, it's not just the edge rushers. When you get a player like that, he makes everybody better. You're keeping blockers off. When you set the edge, you're keeping blockers from getting the second level to get the linebackers. Obviously, the pass rush impacts the coverage, and the coverage impacts the pass rush. I mean, I don't know what people are watching, and I don't think they're watching other than reading the stat line, and he only had 1 sack or whatever he had. I'm like, I don't even look at it. I look at his impact on the game, and it was pretty significant. And I don't know how anybody watching the Eagles didn't like what Jaylen Phillips did. Because if you didn't, I don't think you were watching the game. I'll be blunt. I mean, what's not to like? I get being worried about the injuries and that kind of stuff, but that's for the medical staff. There's nothing I can do about that. You got to trust your doctors and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, I don't know what people are looking at if they weren't happy with the way Jaylen Phillips played. But and then you got the same people who are thrilled with the way Jalix Hunt played because he got a few more sacks. I'm like, well, Jalen's a better player. Jalix Hunt's got a huge upside. Maybe down the road we're having a different discussion, but right now, I mean, look at the Eagles pre-Jaylen Phillips. Look at the Eagles
it's true.
Post-Jaylen Phillips.
Their defense really did become a unit that we all believed was good enough to go the distance, to basically get to the champ. I mean, Jeffrey Lurie called it the championship defense, and that didn't happen until Phillips arrived. There's no doubt about that. All right, John. Well, it sounds to me like you think 24, 25, it's worth the money then, right? I mean, if he's that big of an impact, and shit, what are we even talking about here?
Yeah, I would, again, you have to see the market. Maybe the market's not as strong as because let's
you don't want to give him the mony if it.
And that's what I mean. Howie's very good at that. But if it does explode, obviously you have to have the walk away number. But yeah, I think it's got to be a little bit higher just because you don't want to go through what you went through last year and go big game hunting and not get the guys and then go into a season with, ill-equipped on the edge. So you gotta weigh that because again, you've already given up a 3rd round pick for this guy. That's big in Howie's world. Like you don't want to.
I think that's one of the bigger reasons he's going to get paid. Howie gave up a 3rd.
You don't want to give up a 3rd round pick for half a season. That's not a good way of doing business. So, and then on top of it, to replace him, you're going to have to pay more money and give up more draft capital to get a player like Max Crosby, just for an example. Now,
if Jaylen Phillips did walk, would they get a comp pick next year?
Depends on the contract he signs, but yes, in theory, if they're in that position. The problem is, again, I have this discussion all the time. You're not awarded comp picks based on just contracts. The contract will be large enough to be a comp pick. Comp picks are for teams that lose more free agents than they gain. So you have to play this game. Like last year, Howie knew he wasn't going into free agency with a large shopping list, so he was playing the comp pick game. And he knew he'd get some significant comp picks from Milton Williams, Josh Sweat, et cetera, because he was going to lose more than he gained. But I think most people don't understand, like when somebody signs a $25 million contract, you don't just automatically get a comp pick. the good GMs, if you lose a player of that caliber, are smart enough to make sure they get it. But in this offseason, I think the Eagles have more work to do than last offseason. So we have to see if they're going to play that comp pick game. But it's not as simple as many people bring it out to be. Now there's good people. Jimmy Kempski does a great job with it. But yeah, because I get that all the time. Comp pick? I'm like, yeah, let's wait and see. There's a big whole formula. It's not just because you lost the guy, you get a comp pick.
Yeah, well, we'll see what they end up doing with Jaylen Phillips and that stuff there. John, predict the contract for Jaylen Phillips. Is it 22 to 24? Is that the number you think? I do think the projections right now are too low. I mean, I keep seeing 16, 17 minutes. There's no way. He's the youngest, best edge rusher on the market right now in the free agency market. There's no way he's getting $16, $17 million, right?
Yeah, well, unless there's health concerns that I'm not aware of. That's the only thing I could see pushing it down. And that's the kind of stuff you're flying blind with. But I mean, he looked healthy when he was here, so I can't imagine.
Played the full season, right? I think he even played an extra game this year, didn't he?
Yeah. Well, at least he sat out, so he didn't have to play.
Oh, right.
Week 18. So, but yeah, he played the whole season. So, yeah, I think those numbers have been very low, and if they're not low, that's quite a deal for the Eagles. Is how I would say it.
Yeah, I mean that'll be interesting to see if what happens there. I think they're going to pay him, but we will find. I go back and forth on him. It feels like they're going to pay him, but if somebody comes in with crazy money, it wouldn't surprise me if Howie walks. But John, I think you're right. I mean, then it brings up the problem of, all right, well now you got to replace him.
Yeah, well that's the problem.
Now you got.
I'm just looking it up real quick. Before this season, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 guys who are making over 20 average annual value. And then, if you think about what was the number, 17. So if you go 21, 22, 23, 24, 25 are already over 17 million. I mean, I don't know how he gets 17 million. Max Crosby, by the way, was at $35.5 million. Now, obviously, you're not at that stage, and some of that is funny money at $62.5 million guaranteed. So it won't be that bad if you require. But you also have to give up significant draft capital, and he's going to be 30. Yeah, to me, it's not even a discussion, but we'll see how he handles it.
Yeah, we'll see what they end up doing there. Going to be interesting.
And you never know about the player too. Remember, he's his I don't know if it's his wife or his fiance was pregnant. Lived in South Florida, loved it in South Florida. It could be, there's other stuff involved.
There's always more to it than sometimes you think about. That's fair. Fair. Good point there. All right. Well, we'll see what they end up doing with Jaylen Phillips. It is interesting with the defensive free agents, John. It feels like, I mean, Reed Blankenship, do you think he comes back? I don't know. We'll talk about that. Nakobe Dean, Jaelan Phillips is out there. Boy, it feels like if we have another offseason where all these guys walk, I mean, is Vic going to be able to keep doing this every single year? I don't want to get too greedy with Vic, John, where you just, all right, everybody can walk and we can keep getting cheaper at every spot. And Vic is going to keep turning garbage to gold. I don't want to do that, John.
Well, no, and Vic doesn't have garbage, man. I think people were asleep and they woke up one day and they don't. I think a lot of people don't even realize it, but the defensive players on this team are better than the offensive players. People just haven't caught up to that. The best players on this team last year were, the Cooper DeJeans of the world, the Quinyon Mitchells of the world, the Zach Bonds of the world. And even Jalen Carter had a down season. Jaelan Phillips, when he got here, Moro Jomo had a great season. Jalix Hunt had a good season. Yeah, I mean, I don't know when people are going to catch up to that, but he's not turning garbage into gold. He's got gold that he's shining up.
There would be a lot of departures, man. I mean, you're talking about, Sweat, Milton last year, some of these big names. I mean, now if you lose,
Yeah, I mean, you can imagine if it were a world with no salary cap, how good that defense would have been. They had those guys on top, but then you're limiting. If Josh Sweat's here, Jay Alexander's not playing. Let's be honest. If Milton Williams is here, Moro Jomo's not playing.
Right.
So, it's a give and take. But they did a good job replacing those guys. You might lose a Nakobe Dean, but you got Jahad Campbell. Again, not garbage. I Reed is the guy I think will be back. But if he isn't, I think, he's replaceable. Let's be honest. So yeah, I mean, their best players are on defense now. Someday people will realize that.
We'll see what ends up happening. Good stuff there, everybody. I want to thank everybody for being here. We got a super chat we will get to in this opening segment. Then we'll talk about the finalization of the Eagles coaching staff. And then we will look at some of the best draft prospects for the Philadelphia Eagles in round one. What I also want to do at some point this week and next week is look at some of the biggest positions for the Eagles in the draft, and then give you guys like a good list of the names and what we think of each of them. So we'll do that here on Birds 365. Let's go to Brian Fleming here, our super chat today. What's up, Brian? Vic's gonna want an end to drop back in coverage and spy like JP. For the Crosby crowd, I only saw him do that once in 25 versus the Chargers. J-Mac, thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, Phillips is clearly a better fit for what Vic does. The dropping isn't as dramatic as people make it out to be. It's not, like he'll work around it. But he likes to have that tool in his toolbox if he can have. Jalen Phillips did a great job with it. But people over he wants that ability, but if he doesn't have it, he'll utilize, like Khalil Mack. I always go to, he wasn't the best dropping overhang player in Vic Fangio's career, but he did a pretty good job with him. So he will take it. He will not ask Max Crosby to do that if that's who they have very often, other than as a curveball where you're trying to fool somebody. So you're right. Jaelan Phillips is a better fit. I don't think there's any question about that. Max Crosby's not going to move inside. Max Crosby's not the greatest setting the edge. Max Crosby's a kind of a one-trick pony.
Is he glorified as Sam Reddick?
He's well, I mean, they're both good players, but yeah,
I'm not saying they're not good players, but they're not particularly like the most versatile. I mean, Hassan's not the most.
Well, I think Hassan started his career as an off-ball linebacker, which was insane. He could do it. He just didn't like doing it, dropping. So yeah, Max is just a big time Max would be great in Jim Schwartz and a Jim Schwartz defense. That's where you want Max Crosby. Old school 4-3 that's where you want Max Crosby, in my opinion. Just go get the quarterback.
Right.
Nothing else. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, not what the Eagles do. Maybe if we had, if you had Jim Schwartz, maybe John, that would be a good fit. But we'll see. All right, John, let's get into the coaching staff real quick, just to finalize this, and then I want to do a little.
I should mention real quick.
Yeah, go ahead.
I forgot to mention the NovaCare complex is no more.
Oh yeah, I meant to hit that. Dan started the show. Yeah, the NovaCare complex is done. So, John, what's the update there, brother?
New name. It's been around for a quarter century. It's been the NovaCare. I'm going to have a really difficult time with this. A really difficult time. It is Jefferson Health is taking over the rights to the team's practice facility. So now it's going to be the Jefferson Health Training Complex, which does not roll off the tongue.
No,
sorry,
funny.
Jefferson Health.
No, yeah, that's terrible. I mean, let's call it NovaCare was fire. So it was a fire name for it, NovaCare Complex.
And
But
I have a feeling a bunch of people are going to keep calling it NovaCare by mistake, just out of habit.
yeah, it might take a couple years to make that switch.
Yeah. So the Jefferson Health Training Complex. There you go. Exciting news.
It's funny, John, because I don't know, a couple of weeks ago on the show, I think after you had left at 10, I was talking to somebody asked a question, and I was saying the one area that sponsorship choice really matters, is like naming stadiums. Like I look at Heinz Field is now Acrisure.
Oh, that's brutal.
It's
that
brutal. I mean, Staples became Crypto.com. Brutal. I'm like, the names really matter of these. If I were a team owner, I would really care. Now I know they all just want to get the most money, which is always going to be the number one thing. But I'd really be.
No, I'm with you. With you.
The right.
What is Arrowhead? Gia Field at Arrowhead. How do you? I don't even know how you say it. GEHA. Is it? Are you supposed to say GEHA? Or are you supposed to say Gia? I don't know. Gia Field at Arrowhead Stadium. Give me a break. Come on. Everybody calls it Arrowhead. If you want to waste your money, go ahead. But Acrisure. Everybody calls that Heinz Field still.
Because it was a damn good sponsorship.
Yeah, that was a good sponsor. Look at locally. You have. I often try to go back to currently the Xfinity Mobile Arena. If anybody can run down every single name they've had in the past,
that's a lot.
Which, by the way, that's not even I always joke that's not even a sponsorship because, Comcast owns the damn building.
Right.
So that's saying we couldn't get a sponsor is basically what that's saying. Xfinity Mobile
or it's more valuable to them to put their own business there, which is
I don't think that's the case. I'm just telling you, I don't think that's the case.
You're probably right.
Yeah. Not that, not that a name sponsorship is going to sink that company, which is a monster. But you get the point.
It's another one of those monster companies that isn't even good. It doesn't even serve the audience, serve their customer well. It is what it is. All right, John. So next year, I'm going to be talking to you from what is it? The Jefferson Health Complex.
Jefferson Health Training Complex. What are we going to call it? The Jeff? I don't know.
I'm headed down to the Jeff. J-Mac, are you live from the Jeff today?
By the way, so here's Xfinity Mobile Arena, your beloved home of the Sixers and Flyers and everything else they do down there. Core State Center, First Union Center, Wachovia Center, Wells Fargo Center, and then obviously Xfinity Mobile Arena. The damn thing's only been around for 30 years. And when it started, it was like, I don't know, they called it like the new Spectrum or something before they got a sponsor. I miss the old days. The Spectrum. Like everybody knows, the Spectrum was legendary. America's showplace.
It really was.
Before everybody was chasing every last penny.
Well, John, 25 years it's been the NovaCare Complex. 25 years, and it is now the Jefferson Health Training Complex. All right, the change is in, everybody. There it is. The Eagles will now practice at Jefferson Health Training
Complex. I'll take pictures of the new branding when we get down there. Who knows how quickly.
Yeah, what's it going to be? That ugly blue logo that they have? I guess.
Oh, Jefferson Health taking strays from Zander. That's Zander, not me. I love the people.
Is that a stray? I mean, I just don't think it matches with the Eagles, I guess
I don't even know what their logo is, to be honest.
Oh, you don't see it when you drive. Every time I drive Broad Street, I go by Jefferson Health, and I see that thing all the time.
I mean, I'm sure I do, but I'm not paying a lot of attention to.
Yeah, it's got that goofy blue logo. That's not a
looking
logo. I mean, this thing would match up with the Cowboys better than it would match up with the freaking Birds.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, blue logo. Yeah, I'm looking at it right now.
Here you go. They already got the thing on Well, it's been the official health system of the Eagles for a while, right? And they've already they've already got the graphic with the Eagle logo on there. But all right, Jefferson Health, JHC, JHTC, they're calling it in the chat. Hogan, good stuff, brother. All right, so there's that update. Good stuff there. Appreciate everybody being here. A couple more super chats I'll get to. Here's Alfredo. No D-Gun AJ news topic. Alfredo, I've mentioned that topic every single day here on Bird. Johnny Mack has literally said almost verbatim what Derek Gunn said.
What is that?
On the pro. So Derek Gunn was on 97.5 yesterday, and he basically said the Eagles want to keep A.J. Brown in 2026. I'm like, yeah, John says that every single day. It doesn't mean they're gonna, but they want to keep him.
Yeah, it does. There's no positive to trading him at this point of the contract if you can work it out. The only way is similar to Carson Wentz. If he just absolutely, says, I don't want to play here, I don't want to be here, then you have to move off him, because again, you don't want hostages, you want volunteers. That's the mentality there. Other than that, yeah, they want him back. But you're not going to get value for him. You're going to take a big hit from a money standpoint, no matter what.
To me, the only way he's gone is if AJ makes it untenable.
That's pretty much what I've said.
Yeah,
the whole way.
That's why I didn't see it and jump at the opportunity to talk to you about it, because that's exactly what you've been saying on the show.
Yeah. I think everybody understands that, who's around the team. And the hope is you rebrand the offense, Sean Mannion, the savior, and talk him into it. We'll see what happens. But I'll also bring up the context of, on Super Bowl Sunday, I thought that was, the Eagles haven't talked about trading A.J. Brown. I that's a timing thing. I can tell you, what I can tell you is the rest of the league thinks they're going to trade him. Not obviously, it's never a monolith, but a lot of people around the league think he's going to get moved, but that's from outside the organization. Because they just see what the people have seen, the frustration, the body language, arguing with Sirianni, all that stuff. So outside, it looks like.
But is there some connection there too? I mean, I don't know. There's the old saying, John, where there's smoke, there's fire. And boy, has there been a lot of smoke here, dude.
Well, that's why they think it.
Yeah.
That's why they think it. And I don't blame people for thinking that. But he's he's the rare, usually when you're portrayed like AJ's portrayed, you're not well liked. Everybody loves the guy. In the building as a person, his teammates, yada, yada. Everybody loves the guy. Usually, if you're a pain in the ass, now everybody's like, come on, dude, settle down. So I think but for the people, when you see the reports, which are true, that people think that the Eagles are going to trade him, that's coming from outside the Jefferson Health Training Complex. Right? It's coming from outside the Jefferson Health Training Complex, not inside. It's not coming from inside the building. Now, if he makes it untenable, like you said, then it's a different conversation. But the contract says run it back for at least one more year. No doubt about that.
Yeah, and I think the Eagles are going to want to do that. We will see what ends up happening there. It's something we will talk about. John, it's only February, and I got to be honest, man. I am sick already of the A.J. Brown conversation. And I know it's funny because I have these things where I scrape and I look for what content's performing the best and stuff. It's amazing. All over YouTube right now in Eagle Land. You know what the number one performing topic is, John? A.J. Brown trade packages.
Yeah, people love that stuff. Yeah, and 99% of the time it turns out to be incorrect and They just go on to the next thing.
Yeah, well, it's part of the machine. People keep the machine running, no doubt. All right, Fredo, thanks for the super chat, brother. Appreciate you. Here's Brian Pumper in another super chat. Appreciate all you guys at the super chats this morning. And then we'll get into this coaching staff just real quick to wrap it up. And then we're going to do a little bit of a different look at it. Here's Pump. He says 46.5 overall PFF, 32.5 overall coverage grade. JMac, are those good metrics? How about you throw on a captain's patch? All the Reed fanboys got an enemy out of Brian Pumper.
Yeah, Reed didn't have a great season, but
no, he did not.
Which was weird because he'd been pretty steady his entire career until last season. But Vic values him. I think in a lot of ways it helps that he had a bad season from the money standpoint. He's the leader on field, the communicator, the guy who gets everybody lined up on the back end. So I think he'll be back. But yeah, you'd be lying if you said he had a good year, because he didn't. But
well, is he worth keeping? I mean, there is the tough part about Reed is like if you look at the numbers and stuff, yeah, you're like, all right, let him walk. You can replace that. But does Vic Fangio like him a lot? You know what I mean? He's the vocal leader on the secondary for the team, as it's been talked about. He's the guy, the communicator. There's a lot of things he does that Vic likes that maybe, hey, look, Vic, that seems to be a theme that Vic, there's a lot of things that Vic likes that the general public doesn't pick up on or doesn't value as much as one of the greatest defensive minds in the game today. Do they sign him, John? Do they let him go? I mean, he didn't have a good year. That's a fact.
Well, I think last year when I thought maybe get an extension, he's coming off a good year. He's coming off multiple good years. Changed agents. I thought there's a clear indication that he's going to want every penny he can get, because remember, he's an undrafted player, so he didn't have a big rookie contract either. So you can't blame him for that. And kind of bet on himself, and it didn't work out. Whereas you saw the year prior, somebody like Milton Williams, the Eagles were trying to get him on an extension, probably something like $8-10 million. And Milton's like, nah, I'm gonna bet on myself. And now he's the second highest paid defensive tackle in the NFL, behind Chris Jones. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't work. In his case, obviously it didn't work. I think it helps the Eagles in bringing him back, because I think he's going to have a much more manageable salary, which will still be significant compared to where he was in his career. So if you're looking at, $8 to $10 million, somewhere in that range, yeah, I think the Eagles, I think he'll be one of the more easier players to bring back. And I think they do, want to bring him back, because, and part of that is certainly Vic, because remember, Drew Makuba is going to be back from his injury. But you kind of, if you were paying attention, we kind of saw some of Vic's frustration with Drew Makuba as a young player, not lining up correctly, making mistakes. You got two of those guys for Vic, he's gonna pull what hair out he has left. So he's gonna want a traffic cop back there. He's gonna want Reed Blankenship back. And I think he should be back. And if you look at his prior history before last year, he's there's a large group of players in that category, Pumper, who did not have good years compared to their previous history. Most of them on offense. You're not going to throw all of them out either. So I think he'll be back.
I think it's a big risk, John, too, to let him. I mean, I know he didn't have a good year, but again, this is where I think sometimes it's too, sometimes can be too black and white. I mean, you're going to let Nakobe Dean walk. You're going to potentially let Reed walk. I don't think they're going to let Reed walk, but in theory, if you let Reed walk, You let Milton and Sweat walk last year. That's what I meant by my garbage to goal comment. You're right. It's not garbage. I agree with you correcting that.
Well, it might be they don't have anybody except like you can lose Nakobe Dean and
John. I mean, these are the Reed and Nakobe Dean, as I've heard, are the leaders of aren't they the leaders of the defense? Them and Jordan Davis, really? Isn't that kind of how it's been?
Yeah, they are. And Reed especially. I said that if there's anybody who's going to be a captain, losing all the captain, it's going to be Reed Blankenship. But yeah, I mean that's part of it. But captaincy is great and all that, but I'd rather have the better player 9 times out of 10. I mean, that'll take care of itself. And it did this year. People were worried about it this year because it was so young and didn't really impact things that much. Because you have guys who are natural leaders and other guys will step up. It's just part of it. I'm that's way low on my list, losing captains or perceived leaders. Not that it's not important. Your quarterback's got to be a leader. You got to have, in general, I mean, quietly because of the injury, Zach Ballin took over that defense. When Nakobe came back, Zach Ballin was still calling the defense. They didn't switch back. So different type of leader, but he's already, entrenched. So yeah, I think they'll be fine from that perspective.
Interesting stuff there. Here's Pumper. What's up, Pump? Traffic cop or traffic cone? J-Mac, get real. If he resigns, it's because he's butt buddies with Coop. Oh, man. Pumper's got his sights set on Reed Blankenship right now, John.
Yeah, nobody's signing anybody because they're friends with anybody. It doesn't work that way. That's fan talk, Pumper. Come on.
I'll tell you what could be real is Reed could take a pay cut to play in Philly to keep his podcast. He's seeing people get $100 million podcast deals. I'm not kidding. Would I rather make $2 million more in another city, or would I rather keep my podcast with Cooper DeJean where I have $100 million upside? Now I don't know if we'll get to that point, but these players are making some pretty big bucks, John, from these shows that they're doing.
Yeah, they are.
That's significant money.
I haven't watched too much of what's it called on
the Exciting Mike's.
Exciting Mike's. Good name. Yeah, I haven't seen. I don't know. Those two. I don't know if they can carry $100 million podcast. Like no, the Kelce's are entertaining. Let's be honest.
Extremely entertaining. 100%. Yeah.
So, I'm going to recommend go for the money.
Yeah. Can they make 10 million? We'll find out. All right. Good stuff. Appreciate everybody being here. Pump. Thanks for the super chat, brother. Good stuff there. Appreciate you checking in as always. All right, John, let's do this real quick finalization here of the coaching staff. All right. The offensive staff, is it officially done now, John? You got Sean Mannion as your offensive coordinator. You got Josh Grizzard as your pass game coordinator. You have Parks Frazier as your quarterbacks coach. You have Ryan Mahaffey as your tight ends coach and run game coordinator. You got Chris Cooper as your O-line coach, and you have the return of Jamal Singleton as your running backs coach and the return of Aaron Moorhead as your wide receivers coach. And the newest addition is Fred Hale as a strength and conditioning coach from Notre Dame. He's been added as the newest addition. And if I'm adding it up correctly, John, that is a full look at the Eagles' offensive coaching staff for the 2026 campaign.
Well, the position groups, there's some, quality control, offensive assistant guys, lower level that people don't think about. So it's not the full staff, but for what fans care about, the position coaches seem to be filled. But there's still some, I'm sure there'll be some title promotions. Montgomery Van Gorder, Eric Dickerson, one of the quality control guys. They might get bumps. Defensively, we still got to see what they do with Mike Pellegrino. That was sort of uncertain. Is he going to be the safeties coach? Last year they had a safeties coach, and he's got a history with slot. They've had a slot coach in the past, so they may change that. And then you have lower level guys. Tyler Yelk is leaving for Nebraska, so they'll have to replace him. So it's not 100% complete, but for the major position guys who are running rooms, that part of it is complete, and that's probably all the fans care about, to be honest.
Well, what do you think? What do you think of the big names? You're right, there's some more to fill in, but lesser positions. What do you think of the big positions? What do you think of the staff, John? What are your takeaways from the staff when you look at that? I think there's some trends there, but I'll let you elaborate. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, defensively, everything's pretty much fine. You lose Christian Parker, they elevate Joe Casper, you bring in Mike Pellegrino. Pretty much the same staff. Defensively, offensively is where all the change is. And it's pretty significant. I mean, you have 3 young guys who are like the ecosystem around Jalen Hurts, Sean Mannion, Josh Grisard, Parks Frazier. And we talk about the constant change and the shifting. Now you have it with the run game where Chris Cooper and Ryan Mahaffey will be like teaming up to get that up to speed. Yeah, I mean, I 21 of 32 teams have new offensive coordinators. So the idea of continuity just doesn't exist in this era of the NFL. And we're going to find out pretty quickly. I mentioned those Jalen Hurts quotes and the shift from Brian Johnson to Kellen Moore yesterday about building a foundation, but then adapting to what you have. It's what everybody should be hoping for. And we're going to see. We're going to see what it looks like. I've been through it before. I think I know what it's going to look like, but until you see it, you never know. I think the offseason, the OTAs, the mini camps, and certainly training camp, you're going to hear a lot about the Shanahan-like concepts they're trying to bring to the offense, and we'll see how long it lasts.
Is there anything about the staff that you don't like, John?
But I mean, there's nothing. They lost a lot of proven guys, and they have a lot of unproven guys.
Yeah.
I mean, but that's just the nature of the beast. I mean, it doesn't mean they can't do it. It just means there's no demonstrated history of doing it. Parks Frazier, for instance, he's never coached a room before in his entire career.
I don't understand that move. I really don't.
He's never coached a position before. And now you're tasking him. Now he used to play the position. Lower level, Murray State quarterback. But he was a quarterback.
I just don't like, are they doing the franchise quarterback? Are they doing him any favors with that hire? I mean, if I'm Jalen Hurts,
I don't know. If he doesn't, I'm
Yeah, but if I'm Jalen Hurts and I'm in Cabo or Cancun, wherever the hell he is right now, in the off season, and I get a call from the Eagles, and we moved Parks Frazier to be your quarterback's coach, I'd be like, man, I'll talk to you when I get back. That doesn't excite me. That doesn't inspire me. That doesn't motivate me. That doesn't. Oh, good hire. He was our pass game coordinator last year. We sucked. Now he's the quarterback's coach. I mean, I don't know. Maybe I'm thinking about it wrong. I just don't get that. Like, that doesn't sound like a good hire to me.
Well, I get it from that perspective, but maybe he's better equipped to handle this job than he was that job. And some of that job, the pass game coordinators, in a lot of ways, I think, even though people think the pass game coordinator is more important, I think the quarterback's coach is more important.
I agree. So I mean, he didn't do great as a pass game coordinator. Now, whether that was his fault or not, I do agree with you
Well,
there.
that's what I'm saying. He's
I
like,
don't know if it was all him, but
you're like on the Philadelphia Eagles, if you're the pass game coordinator, you're the fourth level. I'm not going to kill him for that. I don't kill Kevin Patullo for being second level.
I just, I don't know.
He's fourth level. What am I going to blame him for?
Yeah, let me move Parks Frazier. So you give him an upgrade, though?
Well, if they think he's a smart guy, and they obviously do, who understands the position, and he played the position, and maybe he's got an innate feel for the technique, because that's the biggest thing to me. The technique and fundamentals and the shift to more Shanahan-like under center drop back game, that's a lot of change for Jalen Hurts, and you got to have somebody who understands the footwork and things like that. Maybe he knows it. Maybe he understands it. Maybe that's his expertise. I don't know, but I will say, they had Scott Loeffler under contract. I mean, if Jalen Hurts wanted him back, I don't think there's any reason that they wouldn't have brought him back. So when
Jalen have made that known, Jalen to me strikes me as, I don't think he's going to go and be very demanding of the organization. Now, maybe he is. I don't know, but that's just what I see. I think he's a leader. I think he knows he's the face of the organization, but I don't think he's going to overstep his bounds and go to Howie and say, or Nick and say, hey, let's keep this coach.
Well, I think it's, remember, they're there every day. They see the interactions. They see everything. What I'm saying, because I agree with you, like Jalen's not involved. Like you heard those questions about, is Jalen going to be in the interviews for offensive player?
Well, then you saw the Buffalo set the precedent.
Like, fuck no. That's not how they run things here. I don't care what Buffalo does, but the answer to that was fuck no. I'm sure they, talk to him a little bit about things here and there. But when it comes to position coaches, if he would have said, you know what, we're doing a lot of good things, I really love it, or they saw that, I think that's the easiest path forward. Is, well, he loves the guy, that to me says, he wasn't in love with the situation last year, and maybe he's got a better relationship with Parks Frazier. That's what it says to me. But I mean, ultimately they'll be graded like everybody else is graded on results. But I'm not gonna kill Parks Frazier for the passing game last year.
I won't kill him for it, but my point was, is Jalen Hurts inspired at all by the additions to the coach? I mean, John, how many times last year?
Well, that's what I just said about Jalen. My bet, and I have no inside information with this, so I want to make that clear. My bet is Jalen Hurts preferred Parks Frazier over Scott Loeffler. That's my bet, because there's no reason to change directions if the other case was true.
Fair enough. How many times did you hear last year, John, that the Eagles are not good because their coaches are not good? That was kind of like the whole theme of the year. I mean, every time I went out, even when I was at like a family event for the holidays.
Well, what were all these good coaches doing against these dummies for the previous 4 years?
I agree with you.
Look, there's no.
It's tough, John, because not everybody has the opportunity to talk to you every day. I do. I'm lucky enough to get to talk to you every day. So I have you telling me, what you believe, to be the truth. And then I have the external, the general public, the great people of JAKIB Nation chatting. I go to my family event and my cousin's like, our coordinator's a fucking idiot. I just talking, yapping about the coordinator. A lot of people last year, John, in Philadelphia.
Well, I mean, come on. You can't have a rational conversation with irrational people. Look, my only point, look, I'll often, depending on the day, people like to say, I don't think coaching matters, which is not the case. I think I'm pretty clear for the people that listen to the entire show or an entire conversation, instead of taking out one thing where I'll say, like, look, it's Jimmy's and Joe's over X's and O's. And I find it humorous, though, if you think about it. Talent over coaching. I mean, I'd rather have give me the good players,
Right.
and I'll take my chances, and I'll hire hopefully good coaches. But give me the good players first, number one. Now, and that's the excuse they will use. The same people will say, well, the talent's so good. That's why these dummies won as high as they won. And Sean McVay can't beat Nick Sirianni and yada, 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 because the talent is so good. And then when they fail and win 5 games, and that's my shtick, because they act like they win 5 games, then it becomes, oh, the coaches are so stupid, they can't take advantage of the same talent that they took advantage of the previous 4 years or whatever. There's no logic. There's no rational discourse. This was a proven coaching staff with a high success, the highest success rate in the history of the modern Eagles, certainly. Highest success rate in the NFC over that time frame, only behind Kansas City and Buffalo in the AFC. Pretty high level for dummies. But, the expectations are what they are in this city, and partially because of that coaching staff, where a bunch of guys got run out of town. And some were here for the majority of the time, like Jason Michael and Jeff Stoutland. And some were only here for a year. Kevin was here for both, only a year as an offensive coordinator, but he was here the whole time as part of the staff. Yeah, I mean, it's just scapegoating. But the Eagles are not unique in that when it comes to coaching. They like to think they're unique, but they go along with the crowd when it comes to coaching, like everything else. Well, we got to change. Well, why do you have to change? Well, we got to change. Well, why? Well, we got to. It's
well, the offense wasn't graded very high, John.
Fair, but again, I think if you look at the players and how they perform versus their previous demonstrated performance, you have your answer.
Yeah, well, I don't disagree with that, but what should the organization do then? Because like you always say, it's easier to get rid of coaches than it is players.
Well, so yeah, but
my point underperforms to the level it did last year. What do you do if you're the organization? Like, what do you think they should have done it a different way?
Well, I would have been more patient, yes, because I've seen the history and I saw the way the players played. And I would have said, Landon Dickerson was banged up and playing through a bunch of shit, and nobody knows this better than them. Cam Jurgens was playing through a back that he had to go down to Medellin to get stem cell treatment for. Lane Johnson missed half the season. And then you had the downtick in play from Saquon Barkley because of that offensive line, mainly. You had the downtick in play from the quarterback in the second half of the season, mainly because of the offensive line play, mainly again. AJ with the frustration, all these things. Like, nobody knows that better than Howie Roseman and the coaches and the personnel staff. And, you could have made, like, there's no law against continuity. It's not an indictment. Like, you don't have to react because some blowhard's talking on WIP. You don't have to.
What about the entire tri-state area, John?
That's fine. It could be the entire tri-state area. They don't know what Cam Jurgens is going through. They don't know what Landon Dickerson is going through. You do. You know why the offense looked like it looked. You know. But, maybe the one fly in that ointment is you got to convince the top banana of that, who's closer to a WIP caller than somebody who understands what went on. So yeah, there's my rip of Jeffrey Lurie. And that's the most difficult hurdle. And the natural inclination, and it's got nothing to do with Philadelphia, it's every city in this league, is to blow out the coaches because it's easier to blow out the coaches than the players. You can't replace Landon Dickerson. You just got to cross your fingers that the stem cells work for Cam Jurgens.
Which there's no guarantee of that, my friends. We'll see what ends up happening. Good stuff there. We got a couple super chats we'll get to. Then we got Brandon Lee Goutton in hour number 2 coming up here in about 7 minutes from now. We'll talk to BLG. Let's go to Sean Mims. What's up, Sean? Hurts will never stop rolling right and throwing the ball away. Step up in the pocket. You would like him to step up sometimes here and there, Sean, but that's part of his game, man. He's a playmaker and he makes a lot of plays outside that pocket. So it's just kind of one of the things I think you got to take the good with the bad and keep rolling with it. John, your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, typically that's early in his career. That's what Todd Bowles did to him. That was and it was actually, you get him rolling left, then it's really the play's over if you can do that. But yeah, anytime you flush instead of climb the pocket for a traditional quarterback, that's very bad. You got to embrace the unique, man. Not a traditional quarterback. People are trying to turn him into a traditional quarterback. And I don't know if that's going to work. But you have the two extremes that think, you have the one extreme that loves him, that thinks he can do anything. And just if you say do it, he'll do it. And then you have the other extreme that doesn't recognize how good he is and how successful he is, and often in an unconventional way. And we're far enough into Jalen Hurts' career to understand what he is as a player. And what he isn't is a guy who can climb the pocket.
Is the Eagles organization trying to turn him into something he isn't?
Seems that way.
Or is it the Eagles coaching staff? Or are they?
Well, it definitely hasn't been the coaching staff to this point.
To this point,
it seems like they want to go in that direction.
But is that my question is more like, do you think that's coming from upstairs? Like,
oh yeah,
change the offense, or
yeah.
is this next effort, to try and make it better? I don't know. That's what I'm trying to figure out.
I'm pretty sure it's coming from upstairs. Pretty sure.
I'm pretty sure too. I'm with you. I'm in agreement with you on that. But Sean, thanks for the super chat, brother. Appreciate it. Here is Corporate Pump. Jalen Hurts, the offense is going to look like what Jalen Hurts wants it to look like. Proceeds to have a dog shit season. No accountability in sight.
I don't think it was a dog shit season, but I think, the first half of the season was pretty good, actually, from just an individual perspective for Jalen Hurts. What if you're going to grade the quarterbacks, since we're heading in the list season, where would he be? I'd put him 10, 11, 12, somewhere in that range. It's not like he's the 30th best quarterback in the NFL.
Yeah, not even close.
And I've always said, upside, when he's having his good seasons, he's going to be on the cusp of top 5. And then, when he has his seasons like he had last year, he's going to be 10, 11, 12, somewhere in that range.
John, what I do think is a fair and relevant question about this, because I do think people go a little too far with it. I'm with you on that. But what I do think is a relevant question is, if Jalen's not going to be the same dynamic player from a sense of the running and the other stuff that he's added up to this point in his career, it's fair to wonder, or fair to at least ask, how good is that player still without that, in his toolbox? Without
I think that's the fairest point of all. I don't think he's going to be the same player if he doesn't. And again, I don't know who to blame for that, if that's Jalen himself, if that's the organization, if it's a combination of both. Personally, I think it's a combination of both. From the organizational perspective, I'm about maximizing the shelf life as long as I can maximize the shelf life, no matter how long that is. I'm not worried about keeping this guy till he's 40. I that might sound harsh from the moral police, but he's a unique player. To me, he's got to use what he has to be that unique player, and that running game's a big part of it.
Yeah.
So if he's not going, if it's just strictly him, and says he doesn't want to do it anymore, and I don't believe that to be the case, number one. But if it's just strictly him, then you got to start thinking about turning the page, which is easier said than done. But you got to start thinking about the next chapter. Because what I don't think is going to happen is he's going to turn into the guy who's climbing the pocket and being patient and running a pure progression offense. I don't think that's going to happen. So I want to take advantage of the things that make Jalen Hurts great, what the Eagles have done for a long period of time. And if that's off the table, well, from an organizational perspective, they better get their heads out of their ass and get back on track. And if it's just the quarterback, well, then you got to start thinking in another direction because, I mean, we got BLG coming up. I mean, I'll ask both of you guys. It's like, do you think he's going to be able to do that at this stage of his career, completely morph his game and turn into a traditional drop back passer?
No, heck no. No, and that's unfair to even expect or ask of somebody. I mean, that's not how life works. I mean, people don't just change who they are, at 27 years old because, Jeffrey Lurie asked for it or whoever's asking for it. All right, good stuff there. Appreciate everybody being here. Appreciate all the super chats. Don't forget to hit that like button today. Pretty good crowd in here. All right, February 18th edition. The Combine's on the horizon. All right, we will check in with Rick Saratella tomorrow. Today, we're going to check in with Brandon Lee Goutton, BLG, set to join us right now here on Birds 365. He joins us. You can follow him at Brandon Goutton. Read all his work at bleedinggreennation.com. BLG, what's going on, man? How you doing on this Wednesday morning?
Doing good, guys. How's it going?
Doing well. Not sure how much you heard of that, BLG, but we got into a little bit of a Jalen Hurts discussion because it certainly looks like the Eagles are going to shift offensive philosophies and try to go in a different direction. I'm about taking advantage of the shelf life of this particular player who plays the position in a little bit of an unconventional way, at least compared to old school quarterback play. What's your answer? Is your answer turning him into something he hasn't been, or just continuing to try to elevate what he has been?
I think you have to lean into the strengths. The running thing is a weird one because it was just so drastic of a drop-off last year. Like, there's a big gap where he was in the first whatever years of his career here and what we saw in terms of the rushing attempts per game. And I don't know this explicitly to be true, but my sense is that the Eagles weren't like totally furious about the running less from a standpoint of like, I think they are on board to some extent of, they want him to be healthy and therefore, he needs to protect himself. But it seemed like that was taken maybe too far last year. Like, that has to still be a part of his game more than not at all. And on that same note, I think that's what they're trying to look to get out of Jalen Hurts when it comes to the things that he hasn't been able to do. And I say hasn't been able to do in terms of what we've seen, not just in terms of capability, because there have been moments, yes, where we've seen him, for example, throw over the middle of the field, but he's also like attempting or right down there, the fewest middle of the field attempts like in the NFL. So yeah, I don't think it's that he can't do it at all, but they clearly have not done it a lot. And I think the goal realistically would be not to suddenly swing that to, he's attempting the most middle of the field passes in the NFL as much as it's just trying to move it up from that really extreme low.
Yeah, certainly from the standpoint, from my perspective, BLG, it is a difficult conversation because I'm with you. I think the sharp downturn in the running aspect, it was a combination. It's part Jalen, part Eagles. I think from that organizational perspective, they have to now realize, all right, we took that too far,
Mhm.
and get back to a more balanced approach. I mean, think about the success this guy had for 4 years. You know, a lot of people talk about the tush push and that stuff, but the number of touchdowns over that 4-year period, double digits every year, historic, but also to the point of those, oh, it's just tush push. Guy's over 700 yards, 700, then 600, 600, and then completely drops off. So from the organizational, but yeah, they have to fix their mentality and say, no, we need this back in the offense, no matter what. And then if Jalen Hurts balks for whatever reason, then I do think you have to start thinking about difficult conversations, because he's not the same guy if his +1 impact is not part of this offense. And you've heard the talk already about the Eagles potentially looking at a quarterback in this draft, which I'm not in love with the quarterbacks in this draft, but we know how they value the backup quarterback position, and Tanner McKee's on the final year of his rookie deal. How likely do you think they are to take a potential quarterback in it would be day 2. It's not going to be day 1, obviously. Do you think that's a possibility? And do you think, I think Jeremy Fowler used the term push or something of that nature. I'm paraphrasing Jalen. I don't think it would be about pushing Jalen Hurts as much as the backup quarterback situation. What's your framing of that?
I wouldn't rule out round 1. I mean, just from a standpoint of, like, we've seen crazier things happen. Like, no one thought the Packers would have drafted Jordan Love, when they did in the first round.
Well, I agree with that, but I'm like, who's going to be there?
See, that's the part. Yeah, I can't speak to as well, just not knowing the quarterbacks in this class. But just in theory of, like, if the Eagles loved a guy there, I don't think that's impossible. I don't think it's the most likely thing by any means. But I'm all about drafting a quarterback, and let's just take Jalen Hurts out of it for a second. Like, this is because I think a lot of people think it's like, oh, if you want to draft a quarterback, that means you hate Jalen Hurts. To me, the starting point of this has nothing to do with him. It has a lot to do with the fact that Tanner McKee's on the last year of his rookie deal. I'm guessing they would want to get some value for him and try to trade him if there is value to be had. If not, okay, you ride it out with him one more year, and he probably walks next year in free agency. It's not a disaster, but I don't think that's the optimal outcome either. And if you need a backup quarterback, like, these guys cost real money. Like, for example.
Well, that's the reason they drafted Jalen. Howie was ahead of that. He was like, these guys are too expensive.
I mean, it's true. Zach Wilson. Does anyone want Zach Wilson as their backup quarterback? No. He cost $6 million last year. Jared Stidham, same amount. Like, Mason Rudolph, $4 million.
That's brutal.
You have to pay these guys who aren't good, like, real money to have as a backup. So just the fact that you could draft a guy and he's only making, like, peanuts relatively, like, under $1 million, depending on where you draft him. Like, there's value in that alone. And that's over the course of multiple seasons, by the way, because otherwise you're just churning the backup quarterback position, the veteran market. So, like, to me, just from that standpoint, I think there's value there. And then obviously when you bring Jalen Hurts back into it, the possibility that you do have to pivot, you want an option that you could do that too. I'm not saying that's even necessarily definitely going to happen, but in the event that it does, just like no one thought would happen going into 2020 before the Eagles drafted Jalen Hurts, you never know. And I think that's kind of where I'm at with it, is that I just think there's too much value to be had, both from a backup position and the standpoint of you want to have someone that you could pivot to if things go wrong.
So give me the round, BLG. Where's it land this year? Where did they draft the quarterback?
Ty Simpson at 23. No, I'm joking.
I think day 2. Yeah, I think
2 or 3.
Day 2 is probably where you look there in terms of, like, who's worthwhile taking and what could be realistic for them. And
I'm on the
Garrett
Nussmeier train, by the way. I'm on the Garrett Nussmeier train. If he falls to the 3rd round, which I don't think he will, because there's so few quarterbacks I think will get pushed up the board.
Mm-hmm.
But they would rave about Garrett Nussmeier. But now that's part because Doug was here, Doug Nussmeier. But they did really like him. Now he had a bad year in LSU, but I think he's the potential guy that I would look at if they're going to take somebody on day 2, I think it's going to be Garrett Nussmeier. We'll see how that shakes out. You brought up, I think it's an interesting conversation with Tanner McKee because, as you mentioned, the whole philosophy behind this is draft a cost-effective backup and spin them off for something of value and do it again, and that's the perfect way of doing it. We've reached the end of that rope with Tanner McKee. You can probably get something for him. I don't know how much, but then you need a backup.
Yep.
How do you handle that situation? It's just, well, if we can draft something, then we start. Then we start thinking about spinning off Tanner McKee, or are you comfortable saying we'll live with it? We got, from their perspective, and luckily didn't have to see it. They had a good backup for a couple of years. Did you just accept it and move on, or do you try to really be urgent about it and get something back for him?
Yeah, I mean, if the market there isn't there for McKee, you don't have to trade him. There's value in riding out that last year of his deal,
for sure.
If you're getting, I don't know, a 7th round pick, whatever. And there's nothing worthwhile for him in a trade, so you just ride that out, obviously, at that point. But if you can get something that's like real, I guess, we're talking maybe like 4th round pick above. Like, I think you have to really consider that, especially if you like your ability to pivot, whether that's draft someone. They could probably bring Sam Howell back if they really want to, just so
Is there a world where they do what you just said with the back, pay him $5-6 million and keep him around, extend him?
Like beyond this year, yeah, if they do that. Yeah, it's not. I don't think they extend it. I don't think they would extend. I don't think he would want to sign an extension right now, with the potential that he could go somewhere next year and not guaranteed start, but go somewhere where there's an unsettled spot and maybe at least throw his hat in the ring to start there.
Yeah, we'll see what ends up happening there. BLG, I want you to give me I want you to tell me what you think when I read off this staff. All right, the offensive coaching staff has been completely revamped. Sean Mannion is your offensive coordinator. Josh Grizzard is your pass game coordinator. Parks Frazier is your quarterback coach. Ryan Mahaffey is your tight ends coach and run game coordinator. Chris Cooper, O-line coach, and the return of Jamal Singleton and Aaron Moorhead as your running backs coach and your wide receivers coach, respectively. They brought in Fred Hale to be the strength and conditioning coach from Notre Dame. What do you think?
Nando. He's assistant, real quick. Nando Noriega. He's the.
Oh, okay. He's Fred Hale's the assistant?
Yep.
Yeah, he's going to be an assistant.
Okay. Bill J., what do you think of that staff, man? What do you think of the revamped Eagles offensive staff?
A lot of unknown, right? And I think unknown doesn't necessarily mean can't do it, but it means that we don't know if they can do it. And the Eagles are kind of, I think, making some leaps of faith here. I think a lot of this goes back to, even if those guys are good at their jobs, if Howie doesn't do his part this offseason, push all the right buttons, might not matter just how good they are. That's a big factor in all of this as well. And one certainly will be pivoting to more so as free agency starts here and the team is making some of these big decisions. But yeah, it's a lot of unknown. I think it's a lot of, like, I'm kind of lying if I told you I know what to expect from these guys. I think it's possible the Eagles could have made some smart hires, could be making the right decisions. But when you lose Jeff Stoutland, I don't like that. When Nick Sirianni didn't really have answers last year, when Kevin Patullo was struggling, and obviously they put it on Patullo, is Sean Mannion going to make up for all of that? I don't know. There's a lot of I don't knows here with his coaching staff that I don't go into it feeling like confident about what I know to expect from them.
Real quick follow-up, John, if you let me in here. Do you think the switch to this different, what appears to be a different style, coaching staff, which I think would lead to a different style scheme, do you think that's Nick Sirianni or do you think that's Jeffrey Lurie?
I think it's Nick Sirianni being on board with Jeffrey Lurie and Howie Roseman.
Yeah, right.
I call it political. I call it. Nick is very political. I think he's very savvy politically. Like, he knew what was coming and he gets ahead of it. Whereas Doug Peterson, at the end pushed back and said, come on.
I think that happening to Doug worked well for Nick from a standpoint of Nick now knows what happens if he doesn't get on board. Yeah,
exactly right.
Yeah. So I think that. What the Parks Frazier, I do want to, and then I want to get into that free agency with you. But before that, Parks Frazier moving him to quarterbacks coach is interesting to me from the standpoint of, you're heading into, in theory, a different scheme, different concepts. You're going to ask Jalen Hurts to do some things he's not normally used to doing, which to me speaks about under center, drop back, technique, fundamentals. This guy's never coached quarterback. Now, he was a quarterback in college at Murray State. Never had a position room. You had a guy who's been coaching quarterbacks since the beginning of time, Coach Tom Brady at Michigan. They were talking about Greg Olson, who's been coaching quarterbacks forever. And they end up with somebody who's never done it before in a year where you got to teach a bunch of this stuff to a guy who hasn't been doing a bunch of this stuff. That's the one to me. I'm like, really? Or is it just as simple as, maybe Jalen didn't like Scott Leffler? I don't know, but I would think they would. They're not talking to him about the offensive, but I would think if he loved Scott Leffler, who was under contract, Scott Leffler would be back.
Right.
So is that kind of how you read that?
Yeah, if I'm looking at like the Eagles' optimistic kind of spin here, it would be that I'm guessing Jalen Hurts likes Parks Frazier, or at least doesn't dislike him.
Yeah.
I don't know this to be true, but it's possible that Frazier had a role in the red zone success last year. Possible, since they were so good there. I look at the fact that he spent the year in Miami before coming to Philly, so has some experience, working with Mike McDaniel, someone who the Eagles certainly, were looking at when it came to their offensive coordinator search this year, and yet still has experience Nick Sirianni too. So maybe you're like, oh, this is the guy who can kind of bridge some of what the new ideas we want to implement with some of the things we have been doing here in the past. So I think that's your sell on it, but I would have felt better, to your point, about bringing in someone, and maybe they still bring in Greg Olson in like, a senior offensive assistant role or whatever. But I do think it would be good to lean on someone with a little bit more experience here. And also there's the Sean Mannion factor of it all. Seems like he kind of wants to have a hands-on role with the quarterback, especially big, emphasis on the footwork. We've heard a lot of talk about that. So maybe it's also looking at that from a standpoint of like, he's going to have a big outsized role in the quarterback room as well. But it definitely feels like a weird one. Like you don't see, I don't even know if it's a demotion, promotion, like how you want to consider it. Like it's weird to see him reassigned there. And also the order of events where like, okay, they hired Josh Gazard as the pass game coordinator. So we now know that Parks Frazier is not going to be back in that role. Is he gone? Is he here? And it turns out they just
the whole
gave
thing
him a new role.
Even with Patullo, it was odd. BLG.
Yes.
I mean, the offensive coordinator, they didn't fire.
Yeah,
they didn't fire him. He's not going to be our OC. Then he left. It's really weird. It was the whole thing was odd to me.
Yeah, it definitely was not traditional the way they went about things. That's fair to say. I do think, I'm sure you saw 21 new offensive coordinators this year in the NFL. That is unbelievable. So, I mean, the continuity aspect, I think we got to pull the plug on. It just doesn't exist. Yeah. Free agency, you mentioned it. We were talking about Jaylen Phillips earlier. How much? I think he's going to be their number one priority, in-house priority, before they get to outside free agency. Boy, I don't know where he's going to be. You got these weird market predictions of 17. I'm like, what are you talking about? 17 million. The cap is going from 279 to 305 or somewhere in that range. I mean, I gotta believe he hits 20 million. Excuse me, or plus. How much does it impact that Howie Roseman gave up a third-round pick to this guy? Because remember, I think a lot of fans are very excited about the idea of Max Crosby. I think Jaelan Phillips is a perfect fit for Vic Fangio. All-around player, can do a bunch of different things, but he doesn't have the big sack numbers, and people love the big sack numbers. Max Crosby already being, connected to the Eagles. He's going to be 30 years old, big sack guy, but he's not really the edge setter that Jaylen Phillips is. Doesn't have the versatility to do some of the things that Jaelan Phillips does. And if you go out and get Max Crosby, you got to pay him more than you're paying Jaelan Phillips, and you got to give up more draft capital. How much do you think the fact that Howie's already given up a third-round pick for Jaelan Phillips increases the urgency to get him done in free agency?
I don't think it's a situation, where it's like a sunk cost fallacy. You're like, well, I have to pay him now that I traded for him. I think there's a comfort level that, it's not sign him at all costs, just hand him a blank check, as I've used that term here before. I think they're going to have a walk-away number with Jaelan Phillips. Might be a really high one. That number might get exceeded from a standpoint of, you look at this free agent class as a whole. I think Phillips is one of the best players available. At least that's a lot of.
I agree. I'm like, why are the market valuations so
lists
low
that are out there?
Yeah,
exactly. It's like teams are going to have money to spend, so they're going to spend it on someone. They're not going to just hoard it all. And it's not like, there's all these other amazing players that we want to pay instead of Jaelan Phillips. Some of the lists I just saw yesterday had him at third or fifth in terms of just all positions, every free agent available this offseason. So I just don't expect there to be any kind of discount or bargain to be had. I think you're going to have to pay real market price, and it's possible the Eagles feel like that's worth it, especially because if you don't have him, you have Jelix Hunt, you have Nolan Smith, and then nothing else unless you're a big Jose Ramirez fan. So yeah, it's tough if you don't bring.
What's
him
your
back.
walkaway number, BLJ?
Looking at the edge market here, the top guys are getting, Mike is getting 46.5. That's crazy.
Outrageous. The edge, the top guys at edge are outrageous.
I think, I mean, look, I'm thinking Phillips is going to want to try to get closer to 30, but I don't know if he gets there. But just in terms of what the market, if that gets driven up here, I mean, you're going to have to at least get 20. I mean, Gregory Rousseau is making 20.
I know.
George Karlaftis is making 22.
Karlaftis 22. Van Ginkel, I love Van Ginkel. 23. Gary's 24. Montez Sweat's over 24.
Yeah, maybe 25. I think 25 is kind of where maybe that's the deal zone right there.
The Crosby conversation, because people love sack guys, and he's a proven sack guy. What's your, if it's between those two guys, you go get Max Crosby on the trade market at 29. He's 29. Don't know when he's going to turn 30. Versus if you had your druthers, just which player would you want?
I mean, I love Max Crosby. I love the player so much. I think he's so fun to watch. He never misses a snap. As much as he can.
That's another thing that concerns me. The guy never misses a snap. They've beaten the shit out of him for years.
He's just so unblockable. I feel like at times he can just take over a game. But I think from where the Eagles are, it just feels like they don't have the luxury of going out and making that big splash with how they want to take care of their own players. It's not even just the guys this year. In terms of someone like Jordan Davis, they can pay, but they have to plan for Quinyon Mitchell and Cooper DeJean. They have big contracts on the horizon as well. And if they want to pay Nolan Smith or Moro Jomo or whoever they have on defense here, they have a lot of Jalen Carter. They have a lot of huge contract decisions to make, and I think it's kind of just in the mindset of we can't. Not that they can't in terms of if they want to, they really can. But I think their mindset is more thinking about what we have here first, as opposed to going out and getting someone new.
BLG, when it comes to Reed Blankenship, he didn't have a great season last year, graded out really low. But, the one thing I'd say there is he too much of a leader to let go and just assume everything is going to just fall into place without him? You lost Milton Williams and Josh Sweat last year. These are obviously, now history. But if you're going to lose now, Nakobe Dean and Reed Blankenship, two more leaders, two more vocal guys on the, how much of a concern is that? And where are you on Reed Blankenship? Do you think he should be paid by this Philadelphia Eagles team?
Yeah, if I'm the Eagles, I kind of play this out in that, hey, Reed, talk to us during free agency, keep a line open with us, I think you let him go to the market, kind of get a sense of what the market, how they value him, see what he's worth. And you remain in conversation with him. And if he gets an offer that blows him away and what you can pay, then sure, you're okay, sorry, we can't match that. Congrats on your new deal. I think that's kind of how you handle that one. I think you have to be kind of comfortable with the possibility that he just walks and gets paid more. I would not rush to sign him before that point. If you do lose him, it's a massive loss because Andrew Makuba's coming off an injury heading into his second year. Don't know exactly what you have in him. And then Sidney Brown's not an answer here. And we all know that. So you really don't have much. Maybe you can bring Marcus Epps back. I think that's a good fallback option if you can't get Reed Blankenship back here. But you're really thin there because then you have Makuba, Epps, and then, what's your depth behind him? Maybe you draft some guys there. Maybe Cooper DeJean moves to safety, but then you have to figure out nickel. Maybe you can bring Michael Carter back if you like him in either of those roles. But I would try to get Reed back. But that number has to be right.
How concerned was Brandon Lee Goutton when he saw Cam Jurgens was down in Medellin?
Yeah.
Stem cell treatment, getting injections in his back, which tells me, it tells me right off, well, the surgery didn't cure things. I mean, I'm not a doctor. You're not a doctor, but I didn't look at it as a positive. How did you take it?
I mean, back stuff, it's tricky, right? Like backs don't get better necessarily. It's not like an injury that just needs time. Sometimes that's just is what it is. It's a tough one. It's a good sign. I guess he's trying, like he's trying something, but I just don't know how I don't know how anyone can have confidence in what to expect from Cam Jurgens in 2026 after what we saw here in 2025 and how he kind of just looked like a shell of himself. I don't know that time off for stem cells definitely get him back to where he was in 2024 prior to this injury. You're kind of flying blind and how he talks about hope isn't a strategy, but I feel like you're kind of just hoping. And I mean, you should try to do something, I guess, to have a pivot, to have some kind of fallback plan, but your options there are limited. It's not like you're going to draft, a center in the first round or something with the hope, or, you're not going to invest that level of contingency plan in him, but you have to have one. And
maybe they have one in Drew Kendall. Maybe
that's true. I like Kendall. You could also bring back Brett Toth. I think that's possible, but it's a real. I think it's dicey. I think that it could maybe he gets healthy, but I don't know.
Maybe it's me, but I'm also worried about Jalen Carter with this PRP treatment. I'm like, what's going on here?
Yeah.
I mean, to your point, I mean, you have new methods, and one thing, doing research after Cam posted his video, a lot of these, the reason he's in Colombia is because he can't get it here because it's not approved by the FDA.
Right.
So, I mean, a lot of these treatments are sort of on the cutting edge, and sometimes they can be positive, sometimes they can be negative. But it strikes me as concerning from the standpoint, if you're going to experimental treatments, I don't know. I look at that as like, well, if something conventional is working, you wouldn't be going to these treatments. And that's with Jalen Carter. The further discussion is we all assume he's getting a monster deal, but do you now wait and see if Jalen Carter's going to get back to what he was physically?
Yeah, in most cases, I'm on board with the Eagles in terms of pay guys early. But I don't think the discount you're getting with Jalen Carter. First of all, I don't really think you're getting a discount. I think anyone who buys that coming off of a season that he just had, as if you can just trick Jalen Carter into Andrew Rosenhaus and that they're getting this they're taking this way below market deal is naive. Also, I don't think either of those sides might want to do a deal now. If that's the case, if they're not getting the top dollar, I think Jalen Carter, I think Drew Rosenhaus, they're willing to kind of wait it out and bet on Jalen Carter in this case. So, and then if the worst case scenario is that you do have to pay him because he looks awesome, then great. That's a good problem to have. So yeah, I would wait on this one. Obviously you pick up the 5th year option, but I would wait on the mega extension for him. And usually I'm not of that mind, but in this case, I think it's worthwhile waiting. Obviously, they know the medical situation better than we do. If they have a really good projection on that and they feel very confident he's going to be fine, there's no issues, then sure, it's a different story. But from what we know, we don't know that's the case.
Now, how much does that not having Jeff Stoutland change your thoughts on this, BLG? Like, I feel like in Philly for the last since we've had Jeff and really since he's become, the powerhouse that he is, it feels like this has always been kind of an afterthought. We draft an offensive line, and he's not gonna be magic like Andre Dillard is an example. But we always believe if a player is going to be good in the NFL or has the ability to make it in the NFL, Jeff Stoutland's going to get it out of him. I mean, I haven't seen many offensive linemen leave Jeff Stoutland and then have great success without it. I mean, I've seen guys come here, though, and have great success. How much has this changed the thought process, or at least just for you, on getting offensive linemen in Philly?
Yeah, it's just weird that we don't know what to expect moving forward. I guess I would think that Howie has, learned things being around Jeff Stoutland and might, kind of lean into the type that he has seen have success from a standpoint of it's not just about, the coaching, although that's a big part of it, but it's also about, taking players with the tools to be great and taking a risk on some of those upside bets. So I would guess that still continues. I would guess Chris Cooper's not going to have like a heavy hand in dictating the Eagles' offensive line strategy the way that Stoutland might.
Come on. He did such a good job in Minnesota.
That's right.
That offensive line. Yeah, that's a tough spot for him as well, by the way. Chris Cooper. To follow Jeff Stoutland.
There's only room to go down.
Yeah. Make sure you follow BLG on the X platform at Brandon Goutton. Read him at bleedinggreennation.com. He and the staff do a tremendous job there. All right, my last question. How long is it going to take you to get used to Jefferson Health Training Complex? Because I got a feeling I'm going to be saying NovaCare for like 2 years if I make it that long.
Yeah, it's always going to be NovaCare.
Yeah. Jefferson,
on.
it just doesn't roll off the tongue. Yeah, it just doesn't roll off the tongue.
No.
I don't like it. I don't like change, BLG.
Is there going to be a nickname? That's my question. Very fair. 25 years of this.
Yeah. The Jeff. How about that?
The Jeff. In writing, you go what JHTC.
Yeah,
that's fine. If you're doing abbreviation but that's you're not going to say that out loud. That's I think a weird one. But I don't like it. It's like
one of those things we were talking about. Like obviously these companies try to make money and sponsorship and get their name out there. But I feel like there's certain instances, and we mentioned Heinz Field with AccuSure Stadium or whatever it is now.
Yeah.
Like everybody calls it Heinz Field. Yeah. I feel like everybody's going to be calling this NovaCare. So NovaCare gets the same brand identity, even though they're still a sponsor, but they're going to continue to get it.
Yeah.
I think everybody's going to call it NovaCare.
100%.
All right.
I think they're the same. They are the same company, John. Is that what you said too? Right? Are they the same company?
I think they're involved together, but
I think it's a partnership.
Yeah, it's a partnership.
All right, good stuff. BLG, thanks for joining in today, brother. We appreciate it. As always, my final question for you is: Jalen Carter, does he get paid this summer, or are they picking up the 5th-year option?
I think it's the 5th-year option. Yeah, I think the extension on both sides might be both sides not ready for it yet. The Eagles not ready to give him that money that Jalen Carter wants, and then Jalen Carter probably being willing to wait out a little bit more for a bigger payday down the line.
Yep, we'll see what ends up happening. BLJ, good show today, man. Make sure everybody goes and follows him at Brandon Goutton. Read all his work at bleedinggreennation.com. It's probably my #1 visited website, BLJ. It's linked at the top. I click it every single day and read what you guys are doing over there. We appreciate it, BLJ. We'll talk to you again next week. All right, man. Thank you.
Thanks guys.
Bud.
Appreciate it.
There's Brandon Lee Goutton joining us right here on Burris 365. Good stuff from BLG. We appreciate him being here this morning. John, we got about 7-8 minutes left to go on the show today. A lot happening in Eagle Land. Combine coming up, John. We got to start to dive into these draft prospects, my friend, and really get a look at some of these guys.
Yeah. We got to get in. Small hands, small arms, no arm length. We got to get into all that stuff. 4'4" guys.
What's your favorite part of the draft process? Because I know it's not that.
My favorite part of the draft process is, getting to talk to people I like and respect, and because I would say the draft for me, I'm very above board. Like I don't watch a lot of college football covering the NFL because I don't have time during the season. And then as you get to off the season, so there's about 4 or 5 guys I've been talking to for years, longtime scouts in the league that are nice enough to give me their time and steer me in the right direction of who the big prospects are. So that's my favorite part of it, which is sort of, behind the scenes, obviously. But the stuff that people get excited about, the combine stuff, I don't like. I wish I was there, but I wish I was there to go to the restaurants and bars after to see agents and executives, not to see the actual combine. So that's the most exciting part to me, and learning about the new players who are going to be good. I've already fallen in love with 2 players, Jeremiah Love and Caleb Downs. So
that's 2 pretty good picks by you, John. Those are some pretty.
I think they're the 2 best players in the draft, and ironically, they both play paid positions where you generally don't go at the top of the draft.
Yeah, right.
But if you're a lot of people already have Kansas City taking Love, I think at 9. I think that would be a phenomenal fit to get them back in the right direction. Good team, and that he could sort of help put over the top. And then wherever Downs goes, I think he's going to be a difference maker pretty quickly. I just think he's really good.
Yeah, he's a damn good player, Caleb Downs. There's no doubt. Yeah, he's a good player.
Don't like the quarterbacks at all. I mean, this is a bad quarterback draft. Mendoza's going to go number 1.
Yeah, you think he does, right? You don't think there's
I don't think there's any doubt. He's not the best player, but I mean that's just the way it works. And I don't know if there's another quarterback going in the first round. I don't think another quarterback should go in the first round.
Who's the next guy? Who's like the second quarterback that'll be taken?
Ty Simpson. And I would not take him in the first round. I think he might get, because there's so many quarterback desperate teams. I think he gets pushed up. I don't think he is.
No.
I think Garrett Nussmeier's the guy that I take a chance on, but I don't want to take.
Right? I mean, he's got the trait. Yeah, you talk about the traits a lot at the draft.
And then, even though I don't like him, but he does have physical gifts. I've never liked the way he played. Maybe I'm around too many Penn State sycophants, but Drew Aller, at least he's got the physical gifts, to take a shot. I'd take a shot on him in the 3rd round.
It's pretty early, but yeah, I see what you mean with him, where he's got, he's definitely got the build to be a quarterback.
But yeah, bad quarterback draft, I would say, and that's, always draws. And then I think the most interesting guy, and I joke about it a lot, but I think Ruben Bain can just play.
Oh, that guy can play. Oh my gosh, he can play. I watched him all year.
And he's got short arms, which generally is not good for an edge rusher. I mean, there's that stuff exists for a reason. Generally you struggle if you can't get that spacing and if you have short arms, but there's certain guys who overcome it. I remember a different position, but inside, saying the same stuff about Aaron Donald. It's one I got right, because I said he's the best player in the draft. And people are, he's too small. He's too small. Some guys can just play. And I think Ruben Bain can just play. And they overcome any physical limitations.
I could see Ruben Bain being a top 5 pick.
Yeah, I think he will be. Top 10 at worst. but I think he'll end up in the top 5 because I don't think it's a strong draft at the top overall.
What are you hearing from your sources about the draft as a whole? Where's the value? Is there more? Every year you hear like, oh, the value's at the top this year, or the value, and then normally the value.
Well, yeah, the value's definitely not at the top.
Where's the depth? What positions have the depth this year?
Wide receiver, tight end. I've heard.
I've heard tackle and edge as well.
Tight end is very deep, which is good for the Eagles because they got to remake the whole room.
Yeah,
potentially. And you got a bunch of guys. You really only have one guy in the first round, Kenyon Sadiq, but then you got a bunch of guys who are going on day 2, like a whole bunch. So I think that wide receivers, it's just a boatload. I mean, that's all they produce now. 17 guys in Brugler's top 100, 17 receivers. 17 receivers.
17 receivers in the top 100?
Yeah. There's just a boatload of those guys. So yeah, those are the 2 I've heard the most as far as depth. To your point about edge, and yeah, there's a lot of good. I think there'll be the kid from Texas Tech is going to be a top 10 pick. David Bailey, Arbel Reese could be a top 10 pick. So there's that. The top of the draft, I think, will be filled with edge rushers. But I'll ask. I haven't gotten together with all of them yet, but I'll be getting more information certainly as it goes on. But yeah, those are some of the players I think that are going to be difference makers, and we'll see how it shakes out.
Going to be interesting to find out, Johnny Mac, what they end up doing. Any thought on whether you think the Eagles might trade up or down this year? Normally, Howie loves to move. Normally, we kind of think, trade up this year, trade down this year. What do you think on Howie in that from that regard?
Well, recent history says he'll target a player and go up to get him. That's what he's been doing recently. If that's the case, generally he's got a group of 4 or 5 players, and he'll that's how they'll go about it. They'll have 4 or 5 guys they think could be in the mix at 23, and if they like one, like they did last year with Jihad, they'll try to go way up. They were trying to go up to 22, didn't have to. Ultimately, they couldn't, and they just went up 1 spot. But they were trying to get up to 22, and then they tried a bunch of spots after that. It's generally 3 or 4 or 5, 3 or 4 players that they want. And if they start getting plucked and there's one left, he'll go up. I think he's more likely to go up than go down at this stage.
Me too. We'll see what he ends up doing this year. All right, Johnny Mac, good show today, my friend, a Wednesday edition. As we keep rolling on in the offseason here, your final thoughts on today's Birds 365.
Yeah, a lot of information off season, but man, it's always something, even if it's just the changing of the NovaCare Complex's name. There's always stuff to talk about with this team, but a lot. And it's only going to amp up when it comes to free agency and then the draft. So we're going to get deep into that stuff. Rick Saratella tomorrow, so we'll get a lot of draft intel on the air from Rick Saratella. He's one of the best in the business. And also want to wish Mike Gill well. Can't be on the show today because he was over in Egypt. And I don't know, he's going to Jordan too. So I don't know where he is right now, but hopefully he's doing well.
Shout out to Mike Gill. All right, Johnny Mac, good show, brother. I will talk to you tomorrow.
All right, see y'all.
All right, thanks, J-Mac. There's Johnny Mac. John McMullen joining us right here on Birds 365. Great show today. Appreciate everybody for being here today. Got some good things to talk about here on Zander Time. I do think with the draft coming up, I'm curious what everybody thinks the Eagles are going to pick in round 1. I know O-line seems to be the overwhelming majority of what people are expecting in round one, which is probably a good thing. I think you probably need, to draft an O-lineman in round one. But I do want to talk a little bit about that. We'll do that. I want to look at the defensive linemen. All right, you got 3 of them. 3 of them are basically due a contract. Now, not all of them are. Well, I mean, Jalen Carter and Jordan Davis are going to be here next year. They're under contract. Jaylen Phillips is the only unrestricted free agent. But you look at the big 3 there on that D line. Everybody needs a contract. Who you paying? Who you not paying? And how much are you paying them? Is there a chance that all 3 are paid? I mean, if you put 30 on Carter, you put 20 on Jordan Davis, and you put 25 on Jaylen Phillips, that's 75 large, folks. That's 75 large. Is that too rich on the D-line? I don't know if that's too rich on the D-line. That's some buku bucks. But I don't know. Are the Eagles going to have it? The cap's going to go up every year. It's already going up to 304 or to 307 or somewhere in that range this year, which is a big jump. So, Reginald, you're definitely right. They're not all going to hit right at the same time, but some of them will hit. If you pay Jordan Davis this summer and you got to pay Jaylen Phillips, those 2 signing bonuses are going to hit at the same time. So, you can kick out the cap hits, which will be fine. And then you got to pay Jalen Carter, I guess, next year. I'm still thinking that it's possible they pay him this year, but we'll see what they do. 30, 25, and 20. If you're good at math, that's 75. All right, so we'll see what they end up doing with those guys. If you do that, you can't pay Q and Coop. But Miles, it's going to make it tough, dude. But I think I'll say this, Miles. I don't think there's a world that exists, right? At least right now, things can change in the NFL as they always do very quickly. I don't think there's a world that exists right now where either Quinyon Mitchell or Cooper DeJean are leaving the Philadelphia Eagles after their rookie contracts. I don't think it exists. I don't think it's even possible. I mean, you're going to let Quinyon Mitchell walk. That guy, Quinyon Mitchell, is a stud. Cooper DeJean is a stud. A stud. Quinyon should have been an all-pro this year. Quinyon should have been an all-pro this year. I mean, he was one of the best corners in football this year. So I hear you, but I don't think you're letting them go. Now, I'm not saying you're saying that, but you're bringing up how expensive it is to do them all. I agree. I agree. No, he was he an all? I thought he got gypped on the all-pro. Oh, no, he was all-pro. Did he make all-pro? Yeah, he was all-pro. You're right. Sorry, Keys. Who am I mixing him up with? He was all-pro, right? Yeah, he was a first-team all-pro. That's a bad miss by me. My bad, Keys. Thanks for Keys. What would I do without you? It's all mixing up. Jordan got gypped, but Quinyon and Cooper were both all-pros. That's right. And they were both first-team all-pros. That's pretty sick. So those guys are getting paid. There's no doubt. Shit, sorry, I missed some super chats. Sig, back injuries are a psyop created by Big Cairo. That's a conspiracy I'll get behind. I love a good psyop, Sig Lord. You know me, I'll buy into that. Crazy word. My bad, Flex. My bad, brother. That's pretty good though for Quinyon. I fucking love Quinyon Mitchell. I love how he's like this silent assassin type of dude. That's quiet, but if you get in his face, he's gonna jaw back at you quick. Love that about Quinyon Mitchell. But all right, I also have something to run by the great people of JAKIB Nation. I want to see what you guys think of this. All right, let me give you a real quick. So, who's interested in a potential JAKIB tailgate-esque type of game day? I don't know if it'd be at the lots. I got to get the details of it. Who's interested in a JAKIB Sports tailgate type of thing where we can all get together at a game or at a bar near the stadiums or something of that nature? Is that something that interests the great people of JAKIB Nation? All right, because I have a pretty I have a pretty intriguing offer right now that I think would be pretty valuable to the great people of JAKIB Nation. If there's interest there, got to make sure there's interest there before we go down that road. But I do think it's an interesting play, and we could do it for the upcoming season. I know Eduardo's always in here asking me to do a tailgate, so if this is something that people are interested in, I'd love to give you some little more information on it. I can get more of the details ironed out today too, but we are looking at a potential tailgate this year for JAKIB Sports. Maybe a live pregame show, something like that for the games this year. So I'm working on something like that. I would love to know if anybody would be interested. Flex might show up. Flex, I need you to show up. All right. Sig Lord's interested in it. All right. Keese is interested in it. All right. Sounds good. All right. Flex, you can't bail on me. Flex, you got to be down there, man. If we're down there, Flex, I know you're coming out too. All right. Flex, one of the great days we've had, Flex, is when we were down at the parade together. All right. Good shit. So let me make sure I got all my super chats today. No, but that's something I'm working on. So if that's something you guys are interested in, I do kind of want to build on that. All right. So if that's something that's out there or is a possibility, I would love to do that, do some more in-person events this year and try and bring the community together, a little bit at the games. So I don't know how many, the other caveat here is, being YouTube based is it's not like radio. Like radio is, for the most part, most radio listeners are in the city. There's people who listen on the apps or whatever, but for the most part, people are in the city. YouTube, if you look at my, let me just pull it up. If you look at my analytics on YouTube, which I love to do, I always love to look at the analytics and I click the audience tab. All right, let me look at the audience tab. And you go to 93% of them are in America. That's obvious. But then you click on America. All right, 26% are in Pennsylvania. That's a pretty good number. That's pretty good. That's the highest by far. That's the number one state. Pennsylvania, 26%. Number two, I think, is a pretty obvious one. New Jersey. All right, New Jersey is 7.7%. Then you got Florida, third, 6%. California, just under 6%. Texas, just over 5%. New York, Virginia, North Carolina, Maryland. So these are all the states where we are reaching. Miles is in Texas. There you go. We got a lot of people in Texas. Roll Phillies in Texas. M. Reyes is in Texas. We got a lot of Texas people here. So we got a lot of people from all over. So I'd like to try and organize that. Keep an eye out for that. I might run a promo on that. And it'll be kind of a first come, first serve thing. So keep an eye on that. I'm going to organize the details of that today, and I'll give you guys some more information on that. It's something that we want to do. So I'll keep you guys posted on that. When it comes to the Eagles NFL draft coming up, what do you guys think? Who's the round one pick? What position is it? Is it O-line? What position are the Eagles taking them round one? O-line flex. I think so too. As boring as it might be, I do think that's the take. Toronto, there you go. Let me check. Where's Canada on the list? Canada's number 2 at 1.5% of the audience country-wise. So most America for sure. Toronto, good stuff though. Appreciate you being here. Tackle, O-line or edge. I agree, Pump. Those are the two. I think that's most likely here. Right tackle, I agree. Probably take a tackle. Wide receiver, if AJ goes OT, otherwise Rasputin. I think you're probably right. I don't think they take a wide receiver one, but like Rasputin, if AJ goes, you know what I'm wondering? Like, do they end up with a right or a wide receiver in round one, or do they look for a more established, maybe a veteran on the open market, or a free agent, or a trade, or something? I don't know, something like that. I think that could be out there too. Mike, good to see you, Mike Berghorst. What's up, brother? Appreciate you being here. Mike Berghorst out of Detroit. All right, good stuff, Mike. Thanks for being here. Preston says OT first. I agree, Preston. I'm right there with you, man. All right, I'm right there with you. MK says representing the 1.5. Love it, man. Shout out to the, I'm not a big Canada guy, but I do love the great people of JAKIB Nation who are from Canada. All right. Cornerback first. Bob, that's interesting. I mean, I don't think they're going to go that route, but that's a lot of cornerback picks. I mean, last notable offensive player taken in the top 2 rounds, I think, was Devontae Smith 4 years ago or so. I know you took Landon. I think that was a year prior. You took Tyler Steen. He was a 3rd rounder. Not a lot of offensive picks in the first 2 rounds recently. So does that change? That's where Rasputin could be right. Not a lot of maybe it's a tight end. Maybe it is tight end. We will find out. All right, we'll find out what they end up doing. And then the other thing I think is really interesting is, you got 3 big defensive linemen that are looming with the contract. Are they getting the $75 million? Is any of them walking? Are you trading any of them? How are you replacing them if any of them go? Jaylen Phillips, Jalen Carter, and Jordan Davis. Those 3 are interesting. By the way, Reed Blankenship, are you guys in the pay Reed Blankenship camp, or are you out? Drop it in the comments below. Are you a pay Reed guy, or are you a let Reed walk guy? It seems to be pretty split. I do think Reed's more valuable. I know he didn't have a good year, statistically, grading wise, but the secondary leader and the vocal leader are an important part of a defense. Vic loves Reed. I guarantee you Vic doesn't care much about the PFF grade. Maybe he does, but I don't know. I think he's an interesting one, actually, this summer. Here's SSJR92. That sounds like a great ship name. It's tough to think about it. How he's going to create a lot of cap space. Might be semi-heavy buyers in free agency, then see what we need after that. I don't see us being big buyers, but you're right. You never know with Howie. He could create a lot of cap space on a whim and then go big. There's no doubt about that. I think that Damian says, I think this will be a good Howie offseason. I think we're due for one, man. We need one. All right. Twiz says, O-line is deep. Don't need a backup when they are 2nd rounders when we pick. We'll see what they do there, Twiz. I agree with you. 32.9 coverage grade. I knew you were going to check in. Preston says, pay him unless he's feeling himself and wants a payday. Just pay the guy. I'm with you, Preston. Don't pay. Can't cover or run. Sounds like a white dude. Sounds like a white secondary player, doesn't it? Can't cover or run. Hey, I don't know. I don't put the color of somebody's skin as the top of my priority list, but I know a lot of people do that. Pay Reed, keep Coop happy, keep a leader. I'm kind of in the pay Reed camp, but Fly Eagles, this is where I disagree with you. If you're doing it to keep Cooper happy, that's a bad mistake. Lance says, quit being racist. I think you're kidding. I think you are. Lance, man, no, I'm not being racist. I'm just trolling. White guys don't run as fast as black guys. That seems to be the overwhelming trend. Okay. And cover. How many white cornerbacks exist in football? Data is not racism. All right. Data is not racist. All right. We'll find out what they end up doing with those guys, though. I'm kind of in the pay Reed camp. Weirdly. I did not think I'd be in that camp. But the reason I'm there is because the defense has become such a big part of the way the Eagles win, even more so than other teams. Like, we have a great defense that keeps us in games. They gave up 17 points a game or whatever it was last year. The defense has become such a big part. You're just going to let everybody walk? Okay, we're going to replace them all. They let everybody walk last year except Bond. Are you going to do that again? That's where I get into the territory of, do we really want to do that? Do we really want to try and replace that guy? Is the grass greener on the other side of Reed Blankenship? I don't know if it is. Pump, I know you think it is, but I don't know if it is or not. It might not be, dude. Here's a Bird Gang Girl. What's up, Bird Gang Girl? Thanks for the chat. I'd like to meet up. Just got a vehicle, but don't like the highway. That is classic. That's a very female comment. All right. That's like my fiance when she drives through. She hates driving through Philly. Hates it. She gets overwhelming agita when she drives through Philadelphia. She does not, she does not like to drive through cities. So that's a classic comment right there. I can understand that comment. I got 3 sisters and a fiance. I believe me, I get it. All right. Incoming people. Oh, you're sexist. No, I'm not. Fucking goobers. Sexist Zander. Yeah, that's right. No meat. It's Big Mike. How was your Fat Tuesday? Did you load up on Fat Tuesday? Happy Ash Wednesday. I'm going at noon. I got mass at noon today. All right, I got mass at noon today. Corporate says, brother, did you not watch that Niner game? Reed was getting fried. Holy shit, he was getting worked by a dude named Tanjis. Come on, Pump. Come on, Pump. You got to be kidding me, man. Here's Pumper saying, brother, did you not watch? I read that already. All right, good one, Pump. All right, guys, appreciate all you guys being here for the show today. It was a good show with Johnny Mac. I thought Brandon Lee Goutton was good as well. He always has some good, good takes. I think he's very objective too, which I love about BLG. So good talking with them. I do appreciate all you guys being here. Good reminder for Ash Wednesday. Thanks, everybody. I knew it was Ash Wednesday. I'm going to Mass at noon. But yesterday was Fat Tuesday. All right. Hope everybody, all my great Catholics out there. All right. Go get your ashes. Do not go get your ashes. Okay. Go to Mass. I'm not one of the buttercup. Oh, yeah, you can skip. No, you can't skip. All right. Go to church. Get your ashes. All right. If you're a Catholic, go to church and get your ashes today. All right. So appreciate all you guys being here. Hit that like button. I'll see you next time, everybody.
EAGLES Eagles.